Welcome to today's episode of Confessions of a Cleaning Business Owner. And today, Diane and I will be discussing taking cleaning from a hobby to a business. And we both, you didn't really start it as a hobby, did you? But this came about because we were talking about something that we're both doing at the moment. So we've been making candles and soaps, and Diane came to me and was like, my wick didn't go quite right. And see, I was giving lots of tips there. And you were saying how enjoyable it is making these crafts, how wonderful it is. And you were like, do you find it really relaxing, Louise?
I'm enjoying the learning curve. I'm making a few mistakes. Like I made some candles the other day and then poured all the wax in and realized I'd forgotten to put the wick in. And I'm really enjoying the learning curve, but that's because it's a hobby. Whereas what you're doing is slightly different, isn't it? And you were just like, no, I'm not really enjoying the learning curve because the learning curve is expensive. Because if I make mistakes, I'm losing money. And it's a slightly different aspect. And that's the same for any hobby that becomes a business, isn't it?
And I think it flows really nicely. So talking about candles and soap. So I've got to abide by the law. So I can't add fragrances and I can't add scents, colours and things, because then it changes my legal obligation to getting safety data sheets and getting testing and the labels that go on it. Whereas you were like, well, how did this smell? And it smells of Christmas.
Yeah. Well, I was like, oils, Christmas candles I've made. Yeah. And like next year, because we've got lots of lavender growing in our garden, I'm thinking, oh, they all go in the soaps and things as well. But yeah, you don't have that option because there are laws, aren't there?
Yeah, loads of laws. And then I've got to pay extra bits. And I just said I made a batch of soap that went wrong. And you were like, oh dear. And I said, yeah, that's 40 quid's worth of ingredients that's just gone into that. And like the other thing is I've got to produce products that sell. I can't just make fun products. They've got to sell. And if I don't sell it and I've got 400 bars of soap, I'm not going to use that. And I think this flows really nicely into cleaning. So as a hobby, how many of us love it? It's de-stressing, it's wonderful. And then you do it as a business and the game changes, doesn't it?
It does, yeah. And I think a lot of us get into this business for various reasons, but actually most of us, I think, fundamentally really enjoy cleaning. And, it starts off as something that we really enjoy and thinking, oh, actually, I could turn something I enjoy into something I can make money from. But I think when you're 15 kitchens in on a week, maybe it's not so fun anymore. And yeah, that's maybe where the change happens and where some of the problems start, I suppose.
And I think the thing is you start it because you think, I'm going to really make a difference to people's lives. And then you're doing a regular 3-hour a week clean. And after 6 weeks, they nitpicking and finding something that they're not quite happy with. And you're like, why aren't you over the moon? I'm working my butt off here. I'm not really being appreciated. And you realize that actually not everyone loves what you're doing as much as you're expecting them to.
And I think also the reality is that a lot of what we do, people don't actually see what we've done. They don't know that we moved all their sofas out or pulled the bed out or moved the bedsides or spent an hour scrubbing the bathroom. They just see the end result and maybe we missed a bit. So sometimes the sort of dissatisfaction from the client's point of view is that they just don't understand what went into it. But from our point of view, we think, gosh, we gave everything, and yet they spotted the bit of fluff on the staircase and not the 3 hours I spent scrubbing their kitchen cupboards.
So, another thing, right? So this actually goes back to our hobby. So we had a customer. I hope she's not listening to this podcast. But anyway, we had a customer a few years ago and we put our prices up gradually over the years. They went up and up. Anyway, she came back to re-quote about 2 years ago and I told her the prices and her eyebrows nearly hit the ceiling. And she told me categorically she wasn't going to pay it. I think I quoted her something like £65 a clean. Okay? She wasn't going to pay it. Anyway, last week, Gareth gets in contact to say, guess who I've just had an order from? So our orders for honey and soaps and things come on the website. He was like, she's just ordered 90 quid's worth of honey. I was like, she wouldn't pay for cleaning because I think people see that's something they can do themselves. And so they don't always value it. But when it comes to something, there's no way she's producing her own honey. I'm going to do that. And then suddenly they value it very, very differently. And I think that's hard sometimes that as a cleaner, you go, are you actually valuing my skills here? Because I'm more skilled at that than the beekeeping, but you are going to pay me 5 times the price for that skill, not this one.
And I think that's an issue on both sides, isn't it? I think we've probably talked about this a little bit before where, the customer thinks, well, I could do it myself. So therefore, £30 an hour is just ridiculous. And yet the person that comes to cut the grass gets paid £30 an hour, and they don't think anything of that because I don't know whether they believe they can't do the grass, but somehow cleaning is too easy. Therefore, it shouldn't be at those rates. But also, conversely, on the other side, maybe because we love cleaning, or also because we believe it's not a skill, we don't charge enough. So I think maybe it works on both sides, that, doesn't it?
I think the thing is, if you're doing something you love, particularly if you come from a job where you haven't loved it, where I don't know, been stuck on a checkout or something, it's not something you're passionate about, and you are passionate about cleaning, and you take it from a hobby to a job, you go, I don't mind what I love. It's the fact I'm doing what I love, and you're going to give me some money for it. So you're going to go out and when, let's say, checkout, and I don't want to be mean about people on checkouts because actually I did work there and loved it, but on the checkout, you were being paid minimum wage of, say, £11.50, £12 an hour. And you go, well, I'll charge 15. And you're making more than you were before. So you're over the moon. But 6 months later, you realize it's not quite that, particularly as you're not only doing cleaning, you've got to do so much more with running a business. You're not just selling your time in that job. You've got to market it. You've got to do the invoicing. Oh, it's so much harder, isn't it?
It is. And I suppose if you're doing 20 hours of cleaning, that reality is you're probably doing 30 hours of work for that 20 hours of cleaning. So certainly that £15 an hour isn't quite so attractive. And also maybe the shine's worn off by that time, and your hands hurt and your back's hurting, and you've woken up with a bad shoulder today, but you've still got 2 or 3 houses to clean. And I've seen quite a bit of that recently. I don't know whether it's because people have been working too hard during the summer, and we're coming to sort of that end of the season, end of the year time, and people have got a lot of niggles. And yeah, that's suddenly that £15 an hour, maybe actually working on the checkout is not such a bad idea. And I have to say, as a kid, did we not all want to work on the checkout when we were kids, playing shops?
I saw that as a proper job. I think it's quite interesting that you bring up lots of niggles and things, because when you clean for an hour or two a day cleaning your house, you don't get the niggles. And I know that I've cleaned for 8 hours plus a day. And there'll be people listening to this going, 8 hours, I do 12. But when I was doing 8 to 9 hours a day, and I only did it during absolute disaster periods in my business, one, it really, really hurt. Two, I did start to get repetitive strain injuries. I had them in the wrist. My fingers started to hurt, the lower back, my buttocks, all around the midriff hurt. The people have it in different places. What we realised is the only way to keep our staff healthy was actually to limit it to 5 hours a day. And so now we don't have our staff working more than 5 hours a day, because particularly doing domestic cleaning, it's fast paced, it's hard work. I think if you were doing offices, and we will have them working longer if they're doing offices, because it's not the same physical pressure.
Yeah, we're exactly the same. 4 or 5 hours on domestic. Actual cleaning is quite enough in order to get to the end of the week and still feel like you can have a weekend. Because, yeah, if you're doing 8 hours of cleaning every day consistently, you just go home literally drained and physically exhausted. And that's probably where that started out with, I love cleaning. Maybe you don't love it anymore because now it hurts.
Yeah, it does. And we've been there. I've got the wrist guards to prove it, the knee guards. And it only takes you standing on the side of a step and your ankle gets twisted a little bit. And it's just, but you can't stop. You can't not turn up the next day, no matter what's happening. I've turned up with great big, for me, it was, what did I get? The thumb joint tendonitis where it ran over my wrist. It's really common. And so I was having a wrist splint with like a bit of metal in, which is fine. And I could still clean with it, and it held the thumb in place. But everyone's looking at it going, what's wrong? I don't want you as my cleaner because you're faulty in some way. And I'm like, I'm fine. I can still do more with my wrist splint on than other people can.
That's true, that, isn't it? That you're faulty. It's sometimes I don't see us as perhaps quite human, do they? It's sort of like these tools that go into their houses and clean. And yeah, I've got a faulty one. It's a pregnant one. Oh, goodness me, she's got a bad back. Oh, I'm not sure she's going to do a very good job.
And they're nice. They're polite, the customers. They are nice to carry, you've got a bad back. Oh, you're pregnant. Are you okay? They'll ask that you're okay, but they're not going to say, sit down, take the weight off your feet. You sit here for the next hour. Oh, no. They still want their clean done, which you can understand. Like, they're paying for a service. So whatever's wrong, you've still got to deliver.
Yeah, and it's interesting actually because one of our podcasts we were talking about should you make your cleaner a cup of tea, and actually I saw in one of the groups the other day somebody was saying about they were at a client's house, they were cleaning the kitchen, and the client came in, made themselves a coffee, and didn't offer the cleaner one, and then the plumber turned up, and the minute they arrived at the house, they were offered a coffee, which was very interesting difference of approach. I'm not sure that we want to kind of go dig further into that, but that can be an issue.
Yeah, I've got to say, in general, customers are beyond lovely. I mean, yes, okay, there's the occasional bad customer, but I've got to say, they're phenomenal. And I think sometimes I read on the groups of the horror stories, and you just think, actually, given the number of customers that we have, so we're seeing it over a larger scale, bad customers are 1 in 100.
I agree, yeah. And I think maybe, isn't it a bit like doctors, where they only see sick people? In some of the groups where people are coming on to ask questions, we only see problems, don't we? And actually, you're right, 99.9% of the time, customers are amazing. They value their cleaners, and probably 90%, 99% of cleaners value what they do as well. Maybe there's only the odd few where we've got challenges, and we have to keep things in perspective sometimes, don't we? So if we are, if we love cleaning, and we're like, right, okay, now I've turned this into a business. What's the problem with having loved it in the first place and now maybe we're not loving it so much? How can we kind of get through that stage?
So I think the first step before we even get into whether we love it or not is if you're going to turn it into a business, you suddenly have to think of the bigger picture and how to protect yourself and because it suddenly does become about money. It's not about joy. It's not about making a difference. Fundamentally, you've got to survive off this for most people. So the first thing you're going to have to do is get contracts. Then you go, well, where do I got contracts? And one of my friends has actually just joined the DCBN to get the contracts because they were like, I can't download them off the internet. I've tried. I wouldn't be paying you if I didn't have to, Louise. I was like, oh, could have given them to her, but mean. If she's listening to this, I'm sorry. I will give you lots more support and you can have everything else. So you need the contracts, and then you need to think through a lot of the problems. So what you're going to do about pets, it's suddenly actually most of my quotes are actually nothing to do with cleaning. It's more about how I'm going to manage to deliver that clean, about how will I get through the door, where am I going to park, what about the dogs, how are you going to pay, what's going to happen if we go on holidays, like all of those things. And then you've got to set up a bank account, really, because it's not great if it goes into your account. You've got to keep track of money, and a lot of times people don't like talking about money. It's really thinking it through. And then you've got to market yourself. You feel really awkward because you've suddenly now got to go online. You've probably never shared your life online before. And you've got to go out and tell everyone that you're brilliant, whether you believe it.
Most people are not very good at doing that, not get very good at shouting about themselves. And do you think also there's a lot of focus I see on I'm just starting out, what products should I use and how should I clean? And yeah, that's part of it. But actually, I think that's the really small part of it. You're right. I would say it's planning for all the different scenarios you could be putting yourself in, particularly as a domestic cleaner.
Yeah, I think it's interesting when you say it's a small part of it. And this is something that I've come across people with products an awful lot. Because to us, it's a really small part of it. We buy the product range, we dilute it, we give it out. Boom, it's simple, it's easy, it's cheap. It's really not when you go from a hobbyist. You probably, if you love cleaning, you've probably gone out and you're using your Purdy and Fig. You might be using the expensive method.
It's all pink and it smells nice and it's very expensive.
And you want to deliver that to customers because that's what you want in your own home. And I don't know what's a Purdy and Fig bottle at the moment? Like £4 or something silly. So you're doing that and you're going to get through a bottle of that every 2 days, let's say, depending how much you're cleaning. So while we see it as a really tiny part, it's really not, Diane. And we're going to people, please look at using professional ranges. And then you go, actually, if you are using these ones that you're buying from supermarkets or specialist ones, if you want to, they're £15 an hour. That's yeah, I mean, you're not even going to walk away with minimum wage, if that.
No. And also, we've talked about this many times before, you're exposing yourself to chemicals that are not meant to be used for 20 hours a week. So there is also that sort of aspect of it. And that would very quickly turn what you loved into something that actually could be seriously damaging your health. We've talked about the physical side of the physical cleaning, but then the products can be a risk as well, can't they? 20 hours a week suddenly for the future, you're storing up problems. So yeah, I suppose to us, it seems simple. Get professional products. That's the only answer. And the only answer I will ever give you if you're cleaning professionally from a hobby to a business is professional products are the only way forward, aren't they? But what else is going on there in terms of that transition and also the problems that you know, because you used to love it, now you hate it. What can we do about that?
I'll tell you what else changes, right? And that turns a lot of people to hating it. So when you do your own home or even your friend's home, you can get it perfect and you can feel awesome. When you go to a customer's house, they say, right, I'm going to pay you for 2 or 3 hours a week. And they've got 5 kids, 6 dogs, right? And you've got 3 hours to clean their 5-bedroom farmhouse. And at best, you can make it look a bit prettier. And so you're walking away going, I need 3 times the amount of time. They're not going to pay you for it. So you stay a little bit longer each time and you get it a little bit better, but you never get the feeling of satisfaction. And you go, I'm not in this for this. I'm not just here to hoover because you're not going to feel satisfied with just hoovering where you can get to. And I think that zaps the joy out of it a little bit because the joy comes from that feeling of making a real difference.
Yeah.
And you're just not.
Yeah, and the reality is, you know, I suppose that one of the nice things though is that at least in your own home, you know, kids and whatever, dogs and pets there and husbands, you know, you clean it to within an inch of its life, and then an hour after everybody comes home from school, work or whatever, it feels like maybe you didn't do anything. At least you don't see that in a client's home, do you? It's only the following week when you go back that it's all been undone. You don't see it being undone in front of your eyes, which I suppose is at least a good thing about doing it in somebody else's home.
I completely pretend it stays like that. Honestly, in my mind, it stays the way I left it. Like I deliberately delude myself.
And you know, reality that's not true, is it?
It's not my job to be realistic.
No,
I've just have it perfect in that moment, and it stays like that.
Yeah. In fact, have you ever had a complaint where actually the teenagers came home before the client and it was all completely undone, and the client goes, "Did you do the kitchen?" Absolutely. Look, here's the pictures.
Did you mop the floor? There's crumbs all over it. And it looks like someone's made toast on my work surface. They did.
Yeah.
Not my problem, isn't it? Or they do it while you're still there. Yeah. And you go, I'm not my problem. I'm walking out this door and you leave it. What are you supposed to do? I did that an hour ago.
Yeah, knowing that the client's not going to. In fact, you know, when my team used to clean my house when I was in the UK, it was what we sort of like, oh, Mark, can you make sure I get home before you so that I get to come in? And Mark's not particularly untidy, but there's nothing better than walking in and the house has been done by somebody else. And if I didn't get to enjoy that, it used to annoy me.
Do you know what I can't stand? When they've done it and my lounge looks amazing and the cushions are all neat. My children get in there before me and they sit on my sofa and watch TV. And I'm like,
you're ruined. Yeah, you don't get the effect of it.
No, I need to have the joy for a few minutes before you. And I mean, they're really sitting down, but so cross.
As kids, we used to get told we were making the place look untidy. So maybe that's what it is.
Do you know the other thing that cleaners do? And do you know, I'm a cleaner and can do this, right? You know how perfectly flat they get the beds? Right, just wonderful. I can do this, and I do this for other people. I can never face doing it in my own home. I will make the bed, but I sure as heck
straighten it. Really, that's get those finishing touches nowadays when we're doing it ourselves. Did it professionally?
Yes and no. Right, I do like cleaning, but it's things like I would happily spend an hour on a Saturday morning just cleaning my bathroom. I really enjoy it. And I will face all the bottles facing forward the way I would for someone else. But I get angry because I hate nothing more than cleaning my bathroom while everyone else is sat around doing I don't know what. Or even worse, they're having fun and I'm left out. Like, so do I enjoy it? Yes. But I get FOMO of what I'm not doing a little bit.
It's interesting, isn't it? But you wouldn't feel like that in a client's house. You know, if I had to go and spend 2 hours cleaning a client's house and they're doing something else, that's never a thought process of how dare they be off enjoying themselves while I'm cleaning their house. But yeah, in our own home, we kind of get that. And have we always had that? I think I probably just found cleaning a lot more therapeutic than I do now. And if I was in a bad mood, I'd go and clean the kitchen from top to bottom and Mark would just keep out of my way.
How many of us do angry cleaning? Like, I still tease my mum for this. She used to do angry hoovering. And I, as a teenager, would be sat on the sofa and I would deliberately not move. And she'd like you'd have to lift your legs as she rams the Hoover under you. And then when she was really angry, and you could tell she was angry, she's like, I'm taking all the cushions off the sofa to clean the crumbs so you can't even be in the room. And I was like, this is angry cleaning.
My mum used to bash the Hoover against the bedroom door when we were teenagers, supposedly asleep, just lazing around at the weekend. Yeah, she'd start hoovering the hallway outside our rooms. And yeah, sorry, Mum, if you're listening, but we knew that you were doing it deliberately.
Yeah, have you never discussed it? We still tease my mum about this.
No.
Yeah, do you know the thing? So we've got a particularly big flight of stairs up to you've seen it, a big flight of stairs up to my house. I really enjoy cleaning these stairs. It's much bigger than a normal job, but it's something I take great joy out of because it's carpeted and it looks amazing. But I'll be cleaning them, and suddenly my husband will decide to take all the dogs out. So there's 2 dogs that charge past me, and then he'll be like, stomping past because he decided to put his walking boots on at the top of the stairs. I know you've literally just put mud on my Diane, I just sometimes despair doing my own house.
The reality is cleaning your own home nowadays is just a thankless task with kids and dogs and things. I've only got my husband here, but he's just always doing some DIY. So he's putting some shelves up for me right now. He's just making everything really dusty again. So it's kind of pointless, but it'll get done. It'll get sorted tomorrow. But in the business, I think I probably still enjoy cleaning. Whether I'd want to do it for 30 hours a week again, I don't know. I doubt it. I'm probably too old for that. But, if we're turning it into a business, can it still be something that we love?
I love it. So I was the last one to come off the tools. I didn't come off the tools and stop cleaning. I actually had 2 other people working in the office before I had to stop and actually come and work in the office. And even then,
it's quite common though. I see that a lot where people will say, I need to hire an admin before they'll hire the cleaner to replace them.
Yeah, I didn't want to. I wanted to be hands-on. I loved every part of it. Do I still love it now? Yes. But, and this comes with a caveat, the problem now is it's really hard to admit to some of the staff that after a couple of hours, because I'm not physically used to it like I used to be, I know I'm going to be starting to hurt. And I'm 40. And I'm going, it hurts. There's people doing this in their feet. I've got staff.
I've got staff older than me, yeah.
And the reality is, and I think a lot of people don't talk about this, the wear and tear on your body, I'm so aware of now. And I still love it, but not enough to put my own body at the risk that I would have done in the past. I wouldn't have cared throwing a Hoover around or whatever. Now I'm like, no, it's done in the right position. It will be. I'll protect my back. I will do things the right way. And so that being so conscious of that, I guess, takes a little bit of joy out of it.
Yeah. And I mean, when I started the business, I was older than you. I was 41, 42 when I first started the business. So yeah, physically fit at the time. And I suppose now if I were to go back to be doing it on a regular basis, I'd just have to treat myself like a newbie and break myself back in gently to get those fitness levels up. But yeah, it takes some commitment. And that's one of the reasons why we don't usually have anybody for less than sort of 3 days a week as well, because we need that physical fitness as part of it, don't we? So, it starts off as something you love that you do for a few hours a week. Even the most committed of us probably don't do more than an hour a day. But then 20 hours, 30 hours a week, that's real, takes some commitment, doesn't it, long term?
Yeah, though, it is amazing. Like, what other jobs? You get the satisfaction, you get the appreciation. Like, I honestly think it's the best job in the world. And for 10 years, I wouldn't have changed it. Obviously, over time, things do change. But if you're going to have a hands-on job and you're going to work for someone else, you're better to do this, work for yourself. Like, you don't have to build a team. You can just go out and love what you do. Very rarely did I think, I don't want to get up and do it. The only times I used to not like it was when my team had got bigger, the sickness maybe was getting a bit high, the jobs, I had too much on, I was totally overwhelmed. It wasn't I didn't like the job, it's just that I was just totally overwhelmed at points.
Yeah. And I think if I was starting again as a solo cleaner and wanting to stay that way, I wouldn't take clients for less than 4 hours a day. That would be my minimum, so that I was only doing 1 client a day, a 4 or a 5 hour client. That for me, and charging according, like a really high rate, probably actually as much as we charge now. So charging around the £30 an hour mark, but minimum 4 hours. That for me, you can do it fortnightly, so it kind of relieves it from the houses that don't need that much time. That for me would be the business that I would build as a solo cleaner, would be max your hours out, No 2-hour clients where you have to go to 3 houses in a day for 6 hours. I wouldn't want to be doing that. But yeah.
Oh, Diane, you're talking about that. That's like the fantasy job. That's what everyone wants. But when you first start out, you aren't going to be given
No,
or
but that would be the business I would build, though, is what I'm saying. Yeah, I might start out where I think, okay, I'll take some work. That's fine. But every time I would be marketing at that sort of target market to get those cleans where 4 hours a fortnight would be my ideal client. And that's what I would be targeting. Yeah, I might take on the other ones to get started, but actually you can relatively quickly to get to 16, 20 hours a week. Then I'd be starting to replace them. That would be the ideal business for me to build as a solo cleaner, would be one client a day. We did it after COVID. We went to one client a day for all of our team members for a good 6 months after COVID, and no pushback from clients at all. So there's definitely lots of potential there to do that.
That was a slightly different world.
It was, but
it's doable. It's
doable. And we reduced, we increased our minimum to 3 hours after that anyway, whereas previously it would always been 2 hours. So, there are lots of ways of doing it. So for me, if I was going now from, I love cleaning, I want to turn this into a professional and stay solo, rather than build a business with other people, that would be the market that I would be looking at, definitely.
I think I'd agree with you on a couple of those points. Obviously, we operate in a very different area to you. So we have potentially slightly smaller houses and a lot closer together. So I would say I would take on a 2-hour clean. And the reason is I could get 3 of those on the same street. It would.
As a solo cleaner, though, I would not want to have to clean 3 houses a day again.
Okay, right. So if I was doing 4, I'm saying 3 on the same street, that's 6 hours. So yes, 2 a day. But I could, when you first start out, I would do 2. If I was working in your sort of area, then yeah, it would make sense. My minimum would be 3 or
I'd rather clean 1 kitchen a day than 2. It might mean 2. I quite like cleaning bathrooms. So 2 or 3 bathrooms a day, great. But not 3 or 4 bathrooms a day and 2 kitchens a day. And, 4 stories worth of houses to vacuum. I just think that
this is like, you say 4 stories, and most of mine have converted probably the attic and the basement.
You've got 3 floors. So if you do 2 of those, that's 6 floors you've got to do in that day. Why make it so hard? I honestly, as a solo cleaner, target the bigger houses, go once a fortnight if need be, but target 4 or 5 hours and you only have to do 1 client a day. For me, that's the perfect solo cleaner business model.
But there aren't the 4 or 5 hour houses. So for me around here,
you've got a 3-story house with 3 or 4 bedrooms, just go fortnightly. 4 hours.
Yeah, so 4 hours, I would say doable. But the majority of my housing stock around here, we're talking 2, 3 bedroom terraces and 3 bedroom semi-detached. Now, the price of those, I don't want to talk about house prices because it's irrelevant, but it's expensive. A 3 bedroom semi round here, you'd be lucky to get under $750,000. And so I'm going, there's not that much bigger than that. Like, they do get bigger. Obviously, they get a lot bigger.
You could do those houses 4 or 5 hours a fortnight. It doesn't all have to be weekly. Fortnight is good. I love fortnightly clients.
But the other thing, right, so I'm going to have a big debate with you here. The other thing is there are big houses. So we live in footballer country near Man United. Like, there is some seriously big houses and, there's cinema rooms and things like that.
No, you'd be going to twice a week. Never mind once a fortnight.
You would. But every other cleaner under the sun is competing for those. So it's all right for me because obviously we do marketing. That's pretty much my full-time job. We're getting those. If I was a solo cleaner just starting out and I was targeting that, I would target that along with 100 other cleaners that are targeting those specific ones. And I think that if I was starting out, it's hard to go in at the top end because it is probably the most competitive. That's where they want to go. So I
don't think a 4-hour clean is top end.
Well, I'm talking about the top end houses.
Yeah, I don't think they should. I don't think any cleaning business should be just targeting those top end clients because actually they're the hardest to get. They're the most likely to actually just hire somebody themselves, i.e. employ somebody. So actually, your 4-bed detached house or your 5-bed big terrace, those are the ones that are good targets, not the real mansions. We've got some footballers' houses near my business, and there's no way that I would target those in my marketing. They're far too big. We would be far too expensive. And even as a solo cleaner, I'd be too expensive. And also, I don't want to, if as a solo cleaner, I wouldn't want to go to a client twice a week because that's too big a commitment in terms of if I lose that client, I've lost too much of my income. So A 4 hours fortnightly client, I stand by it. I think they're the perfect client for a solo cleaner.
I think that's a great idea. I just don't know if the housing stock around here, well, you'd be hard pushed to do it. Just look at the housing stock. There's just not that many 4 or 5 hour cleans.
But you don't need that many clients as a solo cleaner.
But like,
You only need 5 clients a week, 10 clients fortnightly. That's all you need.
I get that. I totally am on board with that. But what's the
I
difference?
love it when we disagree. And I get it, but you're thinking of it with your big business head. You're thinking, I don't want to compete with everybody for these bigger houses. As a solo cleaner, you only need 10 clients at 4 hours, 5 hours each clean. So for me, you don't actually need to build that big a client base. And also it's less clients for you to manage, less juggling that you need to do. So yeah, for me, that if I was doing it again as a solo cleaner, that would be my target market. Doesn't mean that you would always get those clients straight away. You might have to build on it, but that's who I would be marketing to. And those are the houses I'd be delivering my leaflets to. Definitely.
I'm just thinking that if I think, and it's hard off the top of my head what the stats are, cleans that we do above 4 hours, I'm probably thinking 10% of my customers. Because yours is probably 6.
For us, no, probably for us, it's probably 40% is more than 3 hours.
I'm talking more than 4. So
4 or more is probably, yeah, a good chunk of our client base, because we love fortnightly as well, and that really helps.
Yeah, I think it depends what's in your area a little bit. If I was in your area, I'd come in and be like, yeah, I'm not going to say the name of your company. Look at them. I can do it. Would I undercut you? Probably not. I might do.
As a solo cleaner, you're only going to take 10 clients. So it doesn't matter. There's plenty of work out there. There's 10 clients for every solo cleaner, if that's the market that you're targeting, because you don't need that many. Yeah, if one goes off, obviously you're then going to have to find another one. But, it's only sort of 10 clients to do 20 hours a week of 4 or 5 hours a day.
But then if you go off sick for a day, so a lot of people get into this because maybe they do have, I don't know what the right word is, maybe a little bit more instability. Maybe they're dealing with a child that is on the SEN pathway, or like it's challenging. You've got to do visits to school, things like that. So you do have a little bit more instability. If, for example, you had 2 2-hour cleans and you needed to rearrange it, then you could take a day where you've got 4 hours and add on 2 to that one and 2 to the next one. So it would give you the ability to rearrange that little bit more, whereas trying to add 4-hour clean on is never going to happen to a day.
No, and that's where the bigger cleans can be more challenging. But the reality is, what I would do is I would go, actually, let's do 2 3-hour cleans that day to kind of push them and reduce those clients accordingly. So clients are usually,
you're taking on under 4 hours. Where are you getting a 3-hour clean from?
No, what I mean is I would reduce the 4 hours down to 3 hours as an exceptional if it meant that I would have to move. But also the other option, of course, is you work 4 days a week, because a lot of people only want to do around 16 hours. Then you could, obviously your slippage day could be an option. But I think that's a challenge for solo cleaners generally, isn't it? Is that if you've got a jam-packed schedule and you're off sick, or your child's off sick, or you've got, hospital appointments, it's really hard to juggle, really hard. And that's one of the reasons people end up going to companies, because we've got a lot more flexibility in our schedule. So they lose that gem of a solo cleaner because they want the flexibility, or the solo cleaner can't be as flexible. But I think that's a challenge, whether you've got 4-hour clients or 2 hours or 3 hours, that it's really hard to keep that reliability, isn't it?
Yeah. I don't know if there's a perfect answer for this, but what I would say is I would, in a heartbeat, I think you and I do what we love. Like, I didn't get into this business because I just thought it'd be great money. Maybe I should. So it's actually all right, actually. But I did it because I was enjoying it. I really enjoyed it. And it's the same with our other businesses. I think it's the same with yours. Like, I think you'll make more money from doing what you love than you will do for chasing the money. So go turn your hobby into a passion, because if after 3 or 4 years you're not so passionate about it, turn your passion into a business. If you got it wrong after 4 years, what have you lost? If what you sacrificed was a job where it may have been an unskilled one, more like working on the checkouts or working in retail, and you can return to it, you've lost nothing giving it a shot. And particularly if you've got us to hold your hand, support you, ask the questions all along the way, you've got that support network. I think, you've got to give a shot to these things in life. Do something, do what makes you happy.
I agree. And one of the best things, and one of the things that we love the most about this industry, is the way that you can build something that fits around life a little bit. Doesn't mean it's not challenging, but you can actually build a great business for yourself while still having a life outside of the business. And I think that's one of the biggest things about, probably not just about cleaning, but actually about being self-employed completely, is that you've got that flexibility, haven't you?
And if we go back to where we started talking about soaps and candles, and I said to you, actually, when I do it commercially, it does have far bigger impact. There's nothing I enjoy more than shutting myself into the production workshop room for an hour. I'll have my music on in there alone, making soaps. It is stress-free. And that's what I used to get from cleaning. And I think it is really enjoyable. Humans are happy when they're doing things with their hands, when they're being creative. And so many jobs where you're stuck behind a computer screen, that's just removed from you. How lucky are we that we do get to do these things?
Yeah. And actually, we talked about clients, didn't we? Actually, 99.9% of them are amazing and thankful for what we do, and they love what we do. And that's its reward sometimes for a lot of it in itself, isn't it? And yeah, I agree. There's nothing better than sticking some tunes on, although just one earphone so you can still hear what's going on. And yeah, doing a physical task, it can be really rewarding just on its own, can't it?
And stress-free. And like I always say, I've got time to think about what I'm going to cook for dinner. Just gives you that headspace. Imagine doing a job where you're not having to engage with people all day. Like, I love people, but not that much. I really like just cleaning a bathroom.
Yeah. And of course, these poor souls that are listening to our podcast are probably doing exactly that, cleaning away, headphones in, and hopefully enjoying us rabbiting on.
Thank you, Diane. It's been a pleasure as always. And I hope if you're thinking about it, you do turn your hobby into a business. And if you need a helping hand, get in contact.